Hello everyone, today we're going to be making the Express library. I can add a new book, I can view all my books, and they're divided into long books and short. I can also search my books and delete them. Let's take a look at our starter files so that we can start building. First, we have our server.js file. We're using Express and Body Parser, and we've set up the port as 8080, and we've also required these route files that live inside our routes folder, and we have it listening. Package.json has Body Parser, Express, MySQL, and Sequelize. Let's go ahead and run npm install. Now we have our node modules folder and our dependencies are all installed. Next we have our connection.js file. This is going to connect us to MySQL, and it's also going to include Sequelize. Notice here that we have certain attributes we need to put here. We're going to edit this to include our user information, like our username and our password if we have one, on our MySQL connection. Our model is for our book, so we'll have to input what we want our book model to look like and sync it with the database. Our API routes are going to include the routes that will let us view all the books or view the books that are long or short and do those search functions. Our HTML routes are going to include our routes to the different pages that actually display the information. First, what I'm going to do is create a public folder inside app to hold all of our different HTML files. Let's go through what I've created just now. I have a public folder that's going to hold all of my HTML pages and all of the JavaScript used to display those HTML pages. So first I created, there's add to add a book, there's all to view all the books, long to view the long books, short to view the short books, and then view.html is going to function as our home page. Then I created a JavaScript folder, JS, inside the public folder, and that has a corresponding JS file for every HTML file. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and create the database that's going to hold all of my information, Sequelize library. I'm going to choose the username root, and I'm not going to insert a password. Inside my connection.js, I need to put first my database name, next my username, and last my password, which I left blank. The next thing I want to do is write my model for my book. First, I require in Sequelize. Then I create a variable with a lowercase sequelize to represent the connection to the database. Next, I have to create a book model. Okay, let's talk about what we did here. First, I wanted my books to have a unique ID, and I wasn't sure exactly where that was in the Sequelize documentation, so I just Googled it, and I found a Stack Overflow article where we have sequelize.integer as the type, and we put auto increment true and primary key true, so we can search for it by the ID. The title is the Sequelize string, same for author and genre. Pages is an integer. And timestamps false. This just means Sequelize has built-in timestamps that it can apply whenever you create new stuff, and we said we don't need that. Next, we have to figure out how to sync this model with our database. Last but not least, we need to export this model. Next, we need to start writing our API routes. First, we need to require our book model. Next, we need to write a route where we can view all of the books. Because I just want the model to find everything, I'm going to remove the where because I don't have any specific attributes I want it to look for in this specific query. I use a .then function to say that as soon as it's done finding all the models, I want it to res.json or display in JSON everything that it finds. Next, I need to change model to book. Let's see if this is working. All right, so it's an empty array. That's because we haven't actually created any books yet, but it is showing us something, so that's a good sign. Okay, let's look at our next API route. This time, we want to find a specific book. So we're going to use the same find function, but we're going to put those where parameters back in. Okay, so what we've said here is that on the API route, we're going to put a parameter book. And if there is a parameter book that exists, if this is true, then I want you to find all, but I want you to only display where the title equals the parameter for book. And then I want you to display the results in JSON format. This is going to start out really similar. Now, in this case, we're not going off the parameters from a user. We want to set something where all the long books are greater than a certain number of pages. Let's figure out how we can do that with Sequelize. All right, looks like greater than or equal to is this $GTE. Now we need to do the same thing for short. All right, now we need to make a post route for adding and deleting books. Okay, let's talk about what we did. So first I made a post route for API new, where the book will be created by the request.body from the user. They're going to put in a title, an author, a genre, and pages for us. Then I did another app.post, this time to API delete, where the request.body's ID is going to be the thing that's sent and that decides what book gets destroyed. Next, we are going to tackle our HTML. In the interest of time, I've copied and pasted these HTML pages from elsewhere. Let's talk about the important elements. On our home page, we have the important routes for add, all, long, and short. We'll need to remember this whenever we're writing our HTML routes later, so that we know what page to send at what route label. We've put IDs on all the different search buttons so that we can use our JavaScript to say when people click on a certain button to do a certain type of search. On short, the buttons are all the same. Pretty much everything is, except for our panel only has short books, and we gave the ID well section to this panel so that we can stick all of the things that match the query inside here. Same with long, and same with all. Add is a little different. In our panel here, we have a form. This form has a post method attached to it, and it has the different input types with the IDs like title, author, genre, and pages. Now that we have our HTML pages in, let's go ahead and start our server and make sure it all looks right. Uh-oh, it can't get. That's because we haven't written any HTML routes yet. So even though we created our pages, we have to tell our server when to deliver what. Let's go ahead and start that next. Yay, our first route is working. Let's make all the others, keeping in mind the exact routes that we used on our link buttons. Awesome, all of our HTML routes are already done. That was fast. Last but not least, we need to write the JavaScript that's going to allow people to search for books and have them displayed, add books to the database, delete books from the database, all within the UI. Let's start with add. Let's talk about what we've done here. First, we say when someone clicks the add button ID, I want you to run this function. First, I want you to prevent default. That prevents the default behavior of the button refreshing the page. Then I want you to create a new object called new book, and I want you to take the values that the user put in the title, author, genre, and pages IDs and trim off any white space and create the object. Next, what we do is we post to the API route that matches our API routes, the /API/new. And we send the request as the object new book. On our .done function, we just console log the data to make sure that it's working. And then at the last but not least, we reset all the values to nothing as soon as they submit. Let's go see if this is working. We did it! Okay, next we want to write the JavaScript to display all of the books that are in the database at the all route. Okay, so it looks like we have an array of objects to go through. We're going to use a for loop. All right, let's talk about what we did here. We used jQuery and a get to hop onto the API all and grab all of the data that it would send back as a response from the server on that route. So in our for loop, first we create a new well section and we add a class to it so that it will look like the others. And we add an attribute that holds the book ID. Next, we do the well section appended to the other well section. And last but not least, we print out all of our stuff. We append the title, author, genre, and page numbers. Okay, let's see what this looks like. And ladies and gentlemen, it is working. Next, let's figure out how to do the long list. And it's that simple, guys. We want to display it in the exact same format, but we just want to display what comes back on the API route long. Let's make sure it's working. Oh, we got our route wrong. Do we have any long books? Yeah, okay. We just need to repeat this for short books. Perfect. Last but not least, we have to make our search function work on the homepage. Okay, let's talk about what we've done here. First, we created a search button where on the click, it's going to prevent the default action of refreshing. Then we created a book searched variable off of whatever the user types in. And we have the get route going to the API at the book searched. Next, we have it run the render books function. So, the render books function takes the data that it gets and it says if the data length is not 0, as in if there is any data, I want you to first empty whatever was in the stats div before and then have that div appear to the user. Then, for every single book that matches that comes back in the data array, I want you to create a div and I want you to append all of the relevant information with it. Last but not least, it's going to have a button at the bottom that allows the user to delete it. And it's going to be able to do that based on the ID attached to that book that we're auto-incrementing. It appends all of that information to the stats div. Time to test. You guys, it's totally working. Let's see what we need to write next. We'll want to repeat similar actions for author search and genre search. Perfect. All of our search buttons are now working. Looks like our delete button isn't yet. We're going to have to write some JavaScript so that whenever the delete button is clicked, it hits that API route we wrote earlier. Okay, so we've said when you click on this delete class button, I want you to create the variable info by creating the ID from the attribute on whatever they click. Then post to the delete route and pass info in as the ID of the book that needs to be deleted. Console.log a message for us to let us know it worked. And go ahead and remove the div after we click the delete button as well. Let's see how this is working. And it appears we have a bug in our code. Let's figure out what we did wrong. And there you have it, guys. The entire thing was broken because of a semicolon inside an object. Now, all that's left is to test out our API routes. And with that, we're done.